Good morning. Well, it's with great enthusiasm that I welcome all of you to our 2021 Citizens Advisory Committee on Health and Human Services Annual Retreat. We thank all of you for participating, those community members, those service providers that are joining us today online and in person. We know that it's difficult to step away from your busy schedule, especially this time of year, so thank you for being here. We want to thank our CAC members, Dr. Christine Kane, especially, and Ann Carolyn, and Randy Palo, and Dr. Thomas Clear. It's been a long journey to get us here. And thank you so much to our wonderful community service staff members. You know who you are. We're going to hear from them later today, but especially Stacey Caceres and Megan Parnell. Thank you so much for your dedication and your hard work, especially in the last few days, to make this possible. So thank you all to our subject matter experts who will be here. We are excited to hear about your expertise and what you bring to the table and about what we are going to hear today. So thank you so much and welcome.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Citizens Advisory Committee Annual Planning Retreat. We didn't have the opportunity to come together last year, but did several years prior. But, you know, all of you play a very important role in ensuring that our systems of care operate at a maximum level, and we are grateful and thankful that you took the time to be here this morning. A few housekeeping items before we get started. Each of you should have folders, and for those of you who are online, we emailed you some of the contents of the folder. Just remember, okay, we're just going to pause for a quick minute to make sure that those individuals who are online can hear. Okay. So while we are waiting for those individuals online, I just want to take a moment to let the people in the audience introduce themselves. We'll begin with the Citizens Advisory Committee, and then those of you who are at the tables, you can introduce yourselves, and then we'll have introductions from those of you who are in the audience. So why don't we start with you, Ann Caroline.
Good morning, everyone. Ann Caroline Volton, Citizen Advisory Committee member.
Good morning, Inger Harvey.
Good morning, Elisa Kramer.
Randy Palo, Children's Services Council and member of the CAC.
Tom Clear with the Healthcare District, member of the CAC.
Good morning, Marlene Ramnan, member of the CAC and also with the Department of Health. Thank you.
Good morning, Heather Tate-Bolt, Chair of the CAC.
Scott Cannell, ex officio CAC, retired.
Good morning, Connie Siskowski, CIC member and AACY.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, this is Taruna, Assistant Director, Community Services.
Good morning, Jonathan Brown, Director, Housing Economic Development.
Good morning, Tammy Fields, Director of Palm Beach County Youth Services Department.
And then we'll go to John. If you guys want to introduce yourself and just say which agency you're with, that'd be great.
Good morning, Community Service Department, John Euler.
Good morning, Suzanne.
Oh, so, all right. We also have Stacey and Megan who are handling the logistics along with Liz this morning. So I was saying that if you are participating online, please write down your questions in the chat or in the using the Q&A button. If you are here, in your folders, you have some documents where you can take notes. And this is important because we're going to present all of the domains and do all of the presentations before we pause for questions and answers. And so as you are listening to the presentations, please make sure that you're taking notes and writing down your questions so that we can entertain them after the presentations are completed. We will be recording today's session, and so I just want to thank our Channel 20 team and Liz here, who's been organizing logistics with them. We will also post this information online after it's been edited, so Thank you very much, Channel 20, and for our public information manager, Elizabeth. So for those of you who are not aware, we've been engaging in this process for a while now. I don't know, it's probably over 2 years. and that is amazing. And so I think it's just appropriate that we pause for a moment to acknowledge those individuals who've been involved with the information that you'll be hearing today. And I want to begin by saying thank you to staff who's kind of been behind the scenes and working and organizing some of the logistics. I'll start by saying thank you to Megan and Stessie and John, and are there other team members within SPRE that are here? That's all we have. We have a couple more in the pipe. These guys are really amazing. They're phenomenal. They really take pride in their work, and they go above and beyond every single day to ensure that we are facilitating the information that is needed. So we're extremely fortunate to have you as a part of our team. Megan, I think you do a phenomenal job managing and leading your team. And for those of you that don't know, I go to Megan quite a bit. So she serves in more than just this particular role, but anytime I need to gauge what's going on in the department, I go to Megan because she's so connected to other community members, employees throughout the department. And the thing that I appreciate the most is she's not afraid to tell me how it is. She doesn't sugarcoat it. She just lets me know. And that's important. It's really important so that you can have a quality picture of what's going on within the organization. I mentioned thank you to Liz and for the Channel 20 team for being here. A special thanks goes out to Taruna. Taruna is one of the hardest working individuals that I know, hands down. And I always refer to her as the engine of the Department of Community Services because she's connected to just about everything that we do. She's a systems thinker, which I really, really appreciate, and she's tech savvy. And she's great with performance management. So a lot of the things that you guys have seen throughout the years, especially in the midst of this COVID crisis, Taruna is right there managing the teams and driving performance. And she's extremely good at navigating this bureaucracy, which is important if you want to get things done in county government. So thank you, Taruna. I really appreciate the work that you do. It allows me to go out and really communicate with our faith-based leaders and our municipalities and systems leaders and to really work with them to help shape and enhance our systems of care. And it's very important. So again, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. The other thing that I want to mention, I don't know if Nancy is online right now. Okay, so I'll come back to her. But let's go to the CAC members. So raise your hand if you have been involved in the development of this in terms of the PDIC. If you're a part of the PDIC, if you would just raise your hand. If you participated in the PDIC, just raise your hand. Let's give these individuals a big round of applause as well. It takes a lot to work with system leaders and to be able to shape the information that you'll be hearing today. And Tom, I just really appreciate your leadership and the way that you've guided this process. And Dr. Kane, she's done a phenomenal job doing that as well and stepping in. Randy, all of you guys have kind of filled in and worked together to get this done. I always love to hear comments from Dr. Siskowski and Scott, very insightful, always have things to say. Houston, we always appreciate you and the comments that you have and how you are connecting the work that you do to our broader work, really looking out for our residents in unincorporated areas of Palm Beach County. Merlene, it's so important that we are continuing to organize with the health department and the healthcare district. And so having you here is really invaluable as well. And then, of course, Tom, Randy, I mentioned that, you guys are a systems leader and you're working within systems and institutions that help shape and guide our system of care in Palm Beach County. Always have very valuable information Elisa, I can't say enough. So some of these guys are on multiple committees. So like Elisa serves on our Homeless Advisory Board. She is involved with Securing Our Future. She serves on the Citizens Advisory Committee. Like she's involved with a lot of
And the Birth to 22.
and the Birth to 22. She's involved with so many different aspects of what's going on in the department, and she's a representative for DCF. So I mean, that's central to the work that we do, the work that all of us do. And so thank you, Elisa, for always taking the time to give your insights and to be here. Inger, of course, you're grounded in the community, especially out in the Glaze community. You and Houston, you guys always work well together, and we really appreciate having you here. And Caroline, we love the energy that you bring to the CAC, and always willing to step up, whether it's on review committees or handling logistics. And so thank you for helping us out here today. And I know there are a couple of members, Ann Gerwick, Mayor Gerwick, who is also on multiple committees. She's the League of Cities rep here, but she is also a part of the Homeless Advisory Board. And is there another board that Ann is on? I feel like there is, because we communicate so often. So the League of Cities. So she represents our municipalities here. So thank you, Ann. And I know Alan, if he's not online, he's always reaching out and seeing what else we can do to help. So thank you, all of you, for your efforts. Did I miss anyone on the CAC? I know that there are probably some other members that have participated that I don't see here today. But if I missed anyone, please know that we're extremely grateful for your efforts throughout the past year, and that it's definitely appropriate to acknowledge the time and the efforts that you have provided throughout the last 2 years. And of course, I'm really excited, Heather, I'm really excited to have you here to kind of lead these efforts moving forward. You're working with Dr. Kane and having her there to help guide this process has been great. And I know that she's going to be there with the both of us to help continue to shape the CAC. But you're really grounded in this work, and your energy is going to, and your insights is going to take us to the next level. So thank you for the work that you continue to do. I also want to acknowledge some of our presenters that are here today. Jonathan Brown, who's my counterpart, he's in the Department of Housing and Development. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here. And of course, Tammy, someone that I consider more of a mentor. Having 2 years to work under Tammy was really helpful for me. So she's been with county government for a very long time, and her passion and her insights and her energy has helped me to grow and to develop in this space as well. So thank you, Tammy, for what you continue to do. And all of those of you that are in the audience, again, thank you for taking the time to be here today. For those of you that don't know, Nancy Nancy Bolton, who is my supervisor, has been very supportive for us throughout this process. She'll be transitioning to the school district. So the school district scooped her up. She's going to be leading she's going to be the director of risk management for the school district. And so they're going to be gaining a great individual through Nancy. That's kind of her passion and where she feels she needs to be. But she's always been here to support us in our efforts with the CAC and going through this process. So special thanks to Nancy Bolton. We're going to miss her for sure. And then Virginia might be popping in periodically here and there. And if she does, then I'll make sure that we take a moment to recognize her. There's a couple other things that I want to mention before we get into these presentations. We've been working with a group called Rethink Health, and so there are several organizational leaders that have been coming together and really figuring out how we can work better together across systems. And what we've come up with is something called simple rules, and these are things that we will all consider as we continue to move this work forward in the health and human services space. And I just want to pause to mention that because they're so important and they're so germane to our efforts. Lifting up and privilege community voice is a matter of program design, implementation, and system transformation. That's the first simple rule. And we try to go to the community to host community conversations and really get community involved in our efforts as we set priorities and distribute resources to try to help those who are most vulnerable. Developing bi-directional communication networks that reach everyone, especially the most isolated individuals in our community. That's rule number 2. Be responsive in the allocation of resources by eliminating bureaucratic barriers and exploring upstream solutions. And so you'll hear a little bit more about that when we start talking about our guiding principles. Taruna's going to be presenting that information today. But we want to operate in the least restrictive environment to get the services that and the support to those individuals that need it. Leveraging relationships to amplify resources for greater impact so that no organization is going it alone. That's really important. And acknowledging the power dynamics inherent in the gatekeeper role to and commit to a partnership with the community to conduct ongoing critical examination of how to dismantle racism and the conditions that hold inequities in place. So those are like the 5 simple rules that we have worked on as a core team with Rethinking Health. And we'll be inviting many of you to participate in our phase 2. So you'll get information on that moving forward because we really want to continue to build social capital, to work together to enhance our relationship so that we can ensure that our system of care is operating at a maximum capacity. Okay? So I'm going to pause there to see if there are any questions or comments that you have before we jump into today's presentation.
James, I have a comment. Connie Siskowski. All of this wouldn't be possible without your wonderful leadership. And I think, you have acknowledged each of us, but I don't think that we have acknowledged you. So I think it's time.
Thank you very much. Okay, so if we want to move on to the next slide. Thank you, Dr. Siskowski. All right. So this just gives you an overlook of our agenda for today. We're going to talk a little bit about why we're here, the purpose and the process that we've gone through, and laying the foundation, which we'll get into the racial equity statement, into our guiding principles, and some of the core tenets of what we'll be doing, things that permeate throughout all of the domains and things that we want to consider as we continue to do this work. We also want to go ahead and jump into the elements. So Dr. Kane is going to take a moment to orient us to the information that's in the element. And it's important for you to know that we're not just presenting on performance here today. That's not what our primary focus is. Our primary focus is to make sure that you guys, that everyone here and those of you who are online, we thank you for participating. But our primary focus is to make sure that you're aware of the information that is in the Health and Human Services element. So Dr. Kane will give you background about what the element is, and will also make sure that we're all prepared as we listen to some of the domain presentations here today. We'll take a break after the presentations, come back for questions and answers, and then we will talk about what the next steps are, what the next phase is beyond the element, and we'll go ahead and dismiss for today. So Megan, if you want to go to the next slide, we'll jump right in. So why are we here? What is the purpose for us updating the element? So we want to make sure that the element is something that is operationalized and that it is not just a document that sits on the shelf. This is a document that has been approved by the state and the board, so it's really law. And so it's important for us to ensure that we are implementing it based on the way that our system of care works. And so the element should be a reflection of the ecosystem wheel that we'll be able to show you here momentarily. Also, there's a lot of things that are missing in the element. So there's a lot of work that's happening with Birth to 22 and the Youth Services Department. There are other collective impact initiatives that are happening within our health and human services system of care around behavioral health and SUD and et cetera. And so we want to make sure that that is reflected there. We also want to make sure that we are aligning the element to the board's priorities. That's really important. The Health and Human Services element defines what the county's role is in ensuring that our systems of care are protecting the most vulnerable populations. And so it's important for us to point out what investments the board considers a priority, and it shows us exactly how other organizations are coordinating and investing in the various domains that we'll hear about. It's important for us to improve the overall coordination and prevent duplication of efforts throughout the county. And because resources are so limited, this provides us with an opportunity to strategically allocate those resources. And we want our families and individuals to be successful. And so the element in making sure that everyone understands who's doing what, that really helps us to work better as system partners. And it's important to note that when you read or hear contents for each domain, that we're primarily focusing on those backbone organizations, those organizations that are mostly funders, and they're coordinating broadly across each of the domains that we'll go over. And so I want to make sure that I emphasize that, because even though as a provider, your organization may not show up in the element itself, we do know that you are coordinating with most of these funding agencies, and you have been involved in a lot of the comprehensive plans respective to each of the domains. And so just know that your work we're going to show you how your work is tied into all of this towards the end of today's session. And it's not just to protect the social safety net for our vulnerable populations, which we'll define here momentarily, but also it gives us and it sets us up for investors like a Kresge Foundation or a Kellogg or others to invest in our community, because they see how collaborative we are and how well we work together. And so that is really an advantage for all of us. Next slide. So here's the ecosystem wheel that I've mentioned before, and it gives you a snapshot of each of the domains that are part of our health and human services systems of care. And then it also lets you know who the backbone organizations are. And these are organizations who have some type of broad plan with respect to these domains that they're operating from, and that they're coordinating with providers and other entities, other institutions throughout Palm Beach County, and that they are looking out for the vulnerable populations that we'll mention here momentarily, and others. So it's not all inclusive of the ones that we mentioned. I also want to make sure that you know, and I've talked about Mayor Gerwick being here as a League of Cities representative, but we want to make sure that we're coordinating more closely with our municipalities. So although they may not be reflected here on this wheel, just know that it is something that we've built into our structure here with the CAC, so that we are coordinating effectively with them. And then lifting up community voice, as I mentioned earlier, we've initiated some discussions about having a community member on the CAC, not just a Birth to 22 representative, but also maybe someone from the low-income community that can serve as part of the voice and the structure of the way that we operate. And so just know that we will continue to look for ways to include that community voice so that they're a part of every level of our planning process. Next slide. So this is a statement that we wanted to add to the element because it is so important. And I'm just going to read it. I typically don't, like reading from PowerPoint slides, but because this is so important, I'm just going to read it. And then just because racial equity is something that is crucial to us being able to successfully ensure that we have a brighter future, that we're securing our future, if you will. So racial equity is an outcome and a process that eliminates racial disproportionality so that race is not a predictor of success. So we define it right off. We recognize that racial inequities exist across all indicators for success, including in education, housing, criminal justice, health, jobs, regardless of the intent. We also recognize that policymakers within government played a central role in the creation and maintenance of racial inequity, doing so explicitly for centuries and implicitly in recent decades via policies and institutional practices, even when they are race neutral. Racial inequities will continue to exist unless there are intentional and strategic interventions that lead to transformation. So as a governmental entity, we have the ability and the responsibility to promote policy change at multiple levels across multiple sectors to drive larger systemic change. And for this reason, we set goals and measures to track our progress with the recognition that these strategies must be targeted in order to close the gaps. So systems and structures that improve opportunities for communities of color benefits us all, both economically and psychologically. And for this reason, we believe that advancing racial equity is to our collective benefit. And so that is something that didn't exist within the element that will exist moving forward. And I think it expresses the need to really focus on closing some of the gaps that are out there, and not just with race, but other intersectionalities as well. And so with that said, I'm going to invite Taruna up, and she's going to talk about some of our guiding principles and continue to move us forward in today's planning retreat. Taruna?
Thank you, James. As we all know that the guiding principles are the one which ensure the long-term culture, and I think that's what drives the performance. That's what, drives the vision of an organization. And being you all a system thinker, this room is full of system leaders. So it's really important for us to, have these guiding principles to make sure the work we are doing is long-lasting and sustainable, and make sure that we do not lose that vision. James talked about the racism and then how important it is to include that in our, being very thoughtful about when we are providing services, and also the policies. So the institutional and structural racism and discrimination must be dismantled in order to address those disparities. When we create a policy, we really want to make sure that these guiding principles are integrated in the work which we are doing. Health and human services should be provided in the least restrictive environment. And I always say that COVID has been like a blessing in disguise. We were able to now provide services in really, truly least restrictive manner. All the time, clients were not able to get services because they have to come in person. The population we are serving have a lot of barriers. So able to provide that least restrictive opportunity helps us to grow our community. Services should focus on the needs of individuals and family, ensuring the people's needs, values, and care is respectful and responsive to them. People-centric is our approach, and that's what we are hoping to keep on achieving at. An integrated service delivery approach is needed in order to break down silos, reduce duplication of efforts, share critical information, and maximize results for the population we are serving. All workers should be able to earn a living wage and be provided an opportunity to develop their skills over time to facilitate upward mobility. This has been core to us, core to the CAC, and core to our Community Services Department. And we have seen during this pandemic that how important it is to have the improved services so that people can have a decent living wage. 50% of our population is cost burdened, and we all are seeing that each and every day of our lives here. Elected officials, institutional leaders, employers, nonprofits, foundations, workers, and other member of societies all play a role in individuals in entering and staying in the workforce. And you will hear that when we talk about some of our domains today. All residents should have an opportunity to work to their fullest potential, earn a decent income. And the most important is, which I think we have a lot of work to do, to include our business and other organizations to play a critical role in providing quality work and providing opportunities for upward mobility. And I'm going to read it from my laptop because I can't read it because James is blocking me. No, you're good. Employment support benefits should provide through economic stability for families to stabilize and advance economically and live in dignity. And you will hear that when you hear some of our domain presentations, that how we are integrating some of that work that will help our clients to build that mobility. We talk about our vulnerable population. Next slide, please. Thank you. Palm Beach County will promote, fund, and provide services that enhances the lives and well-beings of vulnerable population. The county will advocate for policies, services, and fundings to address the self-sufficiencies and economic stability of vulnerable population. Vulnerable population is defined by the element which include but are not limited to senior citizens, and we have seen that, and community services along with some of you work very close in this space to help our senior citizens to live a healthy life and stay in their homes, and that's what we have been striving to do it. Individuals with disabilities and special needs, individuals who have experienced domestic violence, youth, and you will hear that from Tammy in one of those domains, individuals living with HIV/AIDS, veterans, migrant farm workers, and then individuals and families living or below 200% of FPLG. What we have seen in our work in last few years and more during this pandemic, though we try to serve people below 80% AMI or expand up to 400% FPLG, majority of the folks who need our help are the one who are 100% below FPLG, 125% below FPLG. The people who are cost burden are really, overall as 50% of the population we serve is cost burden. But majority of the people who are cost burden in that data set is the people who are individuals with disabilities and special needs and single family households. The next slides will be presented by Dr. Kane. Dr. Kane is not, everybody knows Dr. Kane. I don't know who doesn't know Dr. Kane. She has been one of the strongest voice in our community. She is truly a system thinker. She thinks about how to make a systematic change in our community and then help guide those policies to integrate those in services. So Dr. Kane, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Ms. Malhotra. I'm so excited to be here with you all today. Good morning. It's wonderful to see you. I want to thank you for joining us to learn about the Health and Human Services element of the county's comprehensive plan. As Mr. Green shared, we are in the process of updating the element, and we really appreciate your input into that process. Can we do the next slide? Thank you. So before we get started into the element, I do want to take an opportunity to give you some context about Palm Beach County's Citizens Advisory Committee on Health and Human Services. So the CAC was established in November of 1990, and the role of the CAC is really to assist the county in the assessment of need, planning, implementation, and evaluation of a system of care. And I want to emphasize here, as described or defined by the Health and Human Services element of the Palm Beach County Comprehensive Plan. So you can get a sense of why this is so important. It really guides our work. I'm truly honored to serve with such tremendous leaders on the CAC. They really bring significant experience and expertise, and it's really a pleasure to work with them in support of the county and the Community Services Department's efforts. Next slide, please. So let me tell you a little bit about the role of the CAC, what our roles and responsibilities are. We're responsible for creating a forum for citizen participation and input on the work of the CAC. And that includes a forum for citizen participation in the development and amendment of the Health and Human Services element, which is really why you all are here today. We're also responsible to make recommendations regarding the collection of data to help us understand Health and Human Services needs of Palm Beach County's residents, as well as make recommendations regarding annual financially assisted agencies funding, priorities, outcomes, and contract requirements based on that information. And finally, we're responsible for serving as a link to the local and regional Health and Human Services planning organizations, as well as other county agencies and staff in an effort to promote collaboration and to leverage resources for the benefit of our residents. Next slide, please. So let's talk about what the system of care is. Now, we define the system of care as a comprehensive spectrum of services organized into a coordinated network to meet the multiple, complex, and changing needs of our residents, and that includes children, adults, and seniors. For us, the system of care focuses on ensuring that the vulnerable residents of Palm Beach County have access to the health and human services, preventive and intervention services they need. So this includes quality services. They're not only accessible, but they're also available, accountable, and coordinated across the system, with the intention that the system provides comprehensive supports tailored to meet the individual needs of our residents. Next slide, please. So now let's talk about the element. So as you've heard, the purpose of the element is really to describe the system of care structure and to assist with its continued improvement to ensure Palm Beach County residents have access to the health and human services they need. The other thing the element does is it really spells out the specific role of the county, as well as that of our key community stakeholders within the system. Of course, while the county is interested in ensuring the system of care is operating effectively to serve residents, and the county does provide significant support of the various domains through funding and direct services, the county's not the only one responsible for the domains or the system, right? It takes all of us to really make sure that the system works. So as a result, the county really strives to partner with key organizations, funders and providers, other community stakeholders to support the domains in a way that leverages their individual resources and creates a more effective system of care. By working together, all of those resources can be coordinated and actually achieve greater impact. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we're currently, as you know, we're currently in the process of updating the element to be relevant to the system of care as it is today. So through the process, the real value of doing that is to be able to illuminate gaps in the system, including each of the domains, and to really strategically deploy resources to fill those gaps. It also offers the opportunity to align the various domains across the system to ensure its effective coordination in support of residents. And as James talked about earlier, it also offers the opportunity to identify policies and institutional practices at the local, state, and federal levels that need to be better aligned to advocate effectively for their alignment. Next slide, please. So Mr. Green shared this depiction of the system of care with you earlier, and it illustrates the various domains within the system of care and emphasizes how those domains are all interrelated. So maintaining an effective system of care is really necessary if we're going to optimize our support for the residents of Palm Beach County. And it's really this system that drives our work. Now, the core values of that work you've heard about earlier really emphasize equity, services being provided in the least restrictive environment, and the use of a people-centered approach. It's also within this framework that we're updating the element. So within each domain, we're focused on understanding the status of that domain, including the supports offered, by considering the quality, accessibility, availability, accountability, and coordination of services. Again, we're looking for gaps and opportunities to improve the domains and the system. Next slide, please. So the County Community Services Department, the CAC, and key community stakeholders from each of these domains have worked together to craft the proposed goals and policies for each domain within the update. That's what you're going to hear about next. You'll notice that the policies align to the framework by focusing them in those areas of quality, accessibility, availability, accountability, and coordination. At this point, while we've crafted this information, we're really looking for broader community support on these goals and policies as part of the process of updating the element. Next slide, please. I just also want to make sure that I note that it's important that this collaborative effort must continue beyond this element's amendment process and into the future, if we're going to make sure that we have a system that operates effectively and does so long into the future. So it continuing beyond this initial amendment phase and making sure that we are paying attention to the system over time, we will need to continually capture data, analyze that data, identify gaps and opportunities, as well as develop and implement solutions, because it will take all of us to achieve this goal of a comprehensive, effective, and efficient system of support. So we are so grateful to all of you in this process and so thankful for your partnership. It will continue to take us all to make sure that this system operates to the benefit of our residents. I also want to especially thank Mr. Green and all of the Community Services Department staff. They're really insightful, they're really innovative, and they're incredibly talented. It's truly been such a pleasure to work with each of you, and I really appreciate all the work that you do, so thank you as well. Now I'd like to turn the presentation back over to Mr. Green and Ms. Malhotra and our other community stakeholders to share with you the various domains as they're drafted right now. Mr. Green?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Kane. So if you want to advance to the next slide.
James, can I make a quick comment?
Sure, absolutely.
That presentation made me realize how long I really have been with the county, because that original 1990 resolution, I was in the county attorney's office signing off on that. So that really did tell me how long I've been here.
So I'm just going to show you this. This slide shows you the order of the presentations today. And I'm going to give you kind of an overview of how these presentations will be framed. Here's one thing that is important to note, and if you go to the next slide, we had the opportunity to do a couple of things. First, we met with system leaders. So we had 2 meetings with the leaders for the organizations within each of those domains. And we talked about this work and what we were looking to do. And we asked them if they couldn't participate themselves. These are the executive directors, the CEOs, and many others. If they couldn't participate, to please send us a delegate so that we would have their voice and their representation with each of the domains that we're discussing here today. In addition to that, we wanted to make sure that these subject matter experts that are leading the organization, leading the work across the county, that these backbone organizations had the opportunity to shape the domains themselves, because they're the ones that's leading the work, and so they know it at a more intimate level. And so there are a lot of individuals along the way, subject matter experts and others who were involved in each of these domains that came together with the PDIC and shaped the information that we're going to present to you. In addition to that, for each of the domains, we brought it back to the Citizens Advisory Committee, which is an open and public forum, and they had the opportunity to share their insights and input for them as well. And so all of those things happened over the past 2 years, and I just wanted to give you an idea of how we came to this information that we are about to share with you today. Each of the presentations will go over what the goals and the objectives are. So it'll start with the high-level goal. It'll provide context as to who those backbone organizations are and what plans they are operating from. And then it will go into specific information about how they are ensuring that we have quality of services, that services are available, that there's an accountability structure, that we're coordinating across the entire county, and that the services are accessible. So we want accessibility to go beyond what's happening with, say, 211, who's a critical partner and obviously is involved with all of these domains. But we also want to make sure that we're looking at where those organizations providing the services are located, whether or not those services are accessible online, and even if they are accessible online, how we can ensure that the most vulnerable populations who might not have computers or computer skills or and may be intimidated by that process, how they can still access the services that we need. And ultimately, the North Star is that when they apply for services, say online, that we can get to a point where that same information can be used across multiple systems so that they're not having to submit an application for services in each of these domains, but that basic information can be shared across institutions so that it streamlines the process and it enhances their ability to access services. And there are some communities throughout the country that have made that work. That's a North Star for us. And so we'll continue in those efforts moving forward. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Jonathan and Taruna up, and they're going to present the information in the housing and homelessness domain.
Good morning again, everyone. Thank you again for having us. Thank you, James, for the introduction. We can progress to the next slide. All right, so the goal for Palm Beach County is to end the cycle of homelessness by collaborating with community partners and implementing the goals and strategies outlined in Leading the Way Home and the Department of Housing and Economic Development's annual action plan. Palm Beach County will support the initiatives with community partners that increase access to availability to affordable housing, reduce the incidence of homelessness, of substandard housing, and provides prevention, intervention services that reduce the incidence of homelessness among individuals and families. Such efforts will be consistent with the goals and objectives delineated in the Department of Housing and Economic Development's action plan and the Leading the Way Home plan. The backbone organizations associated with this goal are the Palm Beach County Community Services Department, the Department of Housing and Economic Development, in collaboration with Homeless and Housing Alliance and other housing entities. And then the quality of services. The Community Services Department serves as the collaborative applicant for Housing and Urban Development, HUDs, will collect and analyze the data that homeless providers enter into the Homeless Management Information System for quality assurance and quality management purposes. The Community Services Department, through its Human Services Division, will collaborate with community partners to establish an operating structure that promotes equity and trauma-informed care. Additionally, to collaborate with the Homeless and Housing Alliance and the Department of Housing and Economic Development to implement evidence-based programs and service delivery models.
Jonathan. Wendy couldn't be here today, but I don't want to be recognizing Wendy for all of her efforts in this domain. You know, she has been the mover and shaker, truly mover and shaker in this domain. Like James mentioned, accessibility is key for this work. The Community Services Department, through its Human Services Division, will work with the Homeless and Housing Alliance, the Department of Housing and Economic Development, and other entities to expand access to online services and maximize access to in-person services offered within low-income communities. Here in this forum, we are talking about our backbone, but there are a lot of other agencies which we have engaged and are part of this work when we are discussing accessibility. Libraries, PalmTran, a lot of our grassroots organizations are part of this work to make sure that the clients are able to access those services. The Community Services Department and Department of Housing and Economic Development will work to expand access to support services to affordable and workforce housing. The Community Services Department will work with community partners and Continuum of Care program to offer assistance to those on the verge of eviction or are facing an unexpected emergency housing situation. And in this work, not just engaging these the COC programs and agency, it's also very important for us to engage court system to make sure the clients coming through the court system are able to access those services through the partners we have within our COC. Next slide. Availability. I think this is, Dr. Kane mentioned it, and this is such a core value to the work we do. The Community Services Department, through its Human Services Division and Homeless and Housing Alliance, will collaborate with other entities to assess the availability of services and communicate any funding gaps to local, state, and federal partners or potential partners. The Community Services Department will strategically allocate resources through the Financial Assistance Agencies program by issuing Notice of Funding Opportunities to address funding gaps to homeless individuals and those at risk of homelessness. And I just want to add, not just the FAA within the Community Services Department, though we have a lot of other programs and being a backbone organization to get a lot of grants from the HUD. A lot of that work does go out in the community through the community partners with these NOFOs. This is done in collaboration with Department of Housing and Economic Development, the Homeless Coalition, housing authorities, and other housing entities, and with advice from all of you in this room, our Citizen Advisory Committee, and Health and Human Services. Accountability, I think that's very core to push this work and then to have the performance in our community. This is also very core to Community Services Strategic Plan along with the CAC work. We will work with the Homeless Advisory Board on an annual basis to measure progress towards achieving the goals outlined in the Leading the Way Home plan. This helps us to look at the gaps, bring back those gaps as a recommendation where we can make those changes through the policies. We will be The Homeless Advisory Board will report progress with Leading the Way Home to community stakeholders and to the Citizen Advisory Committees, and will make recommendations for improvements to the Board of County Commissioners, and that help us to inform the NOFOS process as well. Periodically assess and report the Continuum of Care system performance measures to the Homeless Advisory Boards and to the Citizen Advisory Committees. This is something which we really need to work more and more on it. Like James mentioned, that North Star, because there's so much of work needs to be done to get to that point when we talk about accessing the services, making sure the services are available, and then the accountability, I think, comes with that. Hopefully with that North Star soon. Next slide. Coordination. The Community Services Department, through its Human Services Division, will oversee the Homeless Management Information System and will share access to this database with other service providers within the homeless continuum of the care. And we have done a lot of work in this domain in last 2 years. We have expanded HMIS and Oscars together to allow the agencies to get access for all the services provided by Community Services Department and getting all the other agencies in that work through our HMIS. The Community Services Department, through its Human Services Division and then Homeless Housing Alliance, will expand coordination with municipalities, businesses, faith-based organizations, healthcare entities. We all say health and housing go together. Securing our future initiative, providers and other entities to leverage resources, enhance coordination, and maximize desired outcome. The ecosystem which we had on the beginning of these slides are interrelated, and that's the work which we have to really keep on moving and moving towards that direction. Our next domain is employment. Is Julia there? Julia Detallo is one of our one person which I always call when I really need to get something done through the career source. She has been our voice for the clients' vulnerable population we are serving. And in last 2 years specifically, we have seen such a huge improvement in the coordination with the career source, not just with community services, I know with the DCF, with Children's Services Council. So we are really happy that Julia is part of this work and right here to present for the next domain. Julia.
Thank you so much, Taruna, and thank you, James, and all who worked on this. CareerSource is very proud to be your workforce board, and our primary objective is to design and implement a workforce strategy for economic prosperity in our community. And with that, I want you to know that before we start on this domain, that many aspects of this plan are already written into law. The Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act guides this domain. So with that, I'd like to start the presentation with the goal. The goal for Palm Beach County is to provide access to employment, job readiness, and workforce training. Palm Beach County supports the initiatives and efforts consistent with the goals and objectives established by CareerSource, and that CareerSource plays a key role in the development of the region's economy through planning, implementation of a demand-driven workforce, and also with the innovative employment services utilizing the law, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. Through continuous improvement all the time, and demonstrates value by enhancing our workforce training and employment opportunities for all individuals. And specifically today, we're also focusing on vulnerable populations such as the homeless, the disabled, veterans, ex-offenders, and out-of-school youth as mandated by that law. And CareerSource actually has teams of career counselors and recruiters specifically for each of these populations. It's imperative that the collaboration among education, workforce, and economic development networks maximize the competitiveness of Palm Beach County's businesses and productivity for increasing economic prosperity. So our backbone services for employment organizations in Palm Beach County is CareerSource, as well as Palm Beach County Community Services Department, Community Action, and Health and Human Division. Next, when we talk about the quality of services, Palm Beach County through CareerSource seeks to emphasize the coordination and collaboration at all levels, from the county, its employers, its job seekers, and its vulnerable populations. And we identify education, skills, and the employment needs of our workforce system and provide services accordingly. For accessibility, CareerSource Palm Beach County serves as your county's one-stop workforce board. We offer both in-person and virtual services throughout the region. We collaborate with local economic development agencies and the Business Development Board and community partners, and we conduct a proactive workforce system design to attract talent and businesses to our area. And our services are universally accessible to all. So whether you have issues with vision, hearing, movement impairment, anything, our services 24/7 virtually or in our offices and even out in the community at our local libraries. So we are accessible as much as possible and 24/7. Availability, the Community Services Department with the Citizens Advisory Committee on Health and Human Services strategically allocates funding through financially assisted agency programs. And then Palm Beach County through CareerSource's, the pass-through dollars from the Department of Labor, continues to support and coordinate with community partners to develop and deliver workforce services and address specific areas of need. Palm Beach County, through CareerSource, coordinates with community partners to address employment needs, deliver workforce services to our vulnerable populations, which includes job seekers with significant barriers to employment, such as we've already mentioned. And we include seasonal farm workers and those transitioning from welfare as well. For accountability, CareerSource supports the completion of its annual goals and targets. Those goals and targets are aligned with federal and state metrics as outlined by the United States Department of Labor, the Department of Economic Opportunity, and Palm Beach County's local workforce board. Palm Beach County, through CareerSource, ensures the success of achieving those annual organizational goals, and we provide an organizational effectiveness report and allows the board to analyze trends in our area related to program effectiveness and identify areas that have increased need of focus. And we provide those resources to address those areas. CareerSource is an active participant in a lot of variety of community-wide cradle-to-career initiatives launched by funders, policymakers, and stakeholders. And CareerSource is involved in initiatives that have the common goal of achieving the collective impact with maximum coordination. And I am always very, very proud to talk about Palm Beach County when I'm at the state level, because we do have a well-coordinated community that comes together in that ecosystem that James was talking about. And as far as coordination goes, Palm Beach County, through CareerSource, supports the alignment of workforce investment, education, and economic development to achieve a comprehensive, accessible, and a high-quality workforce development system. We do serve as the facilitator for strategic initiatives to align workforce investment and education, and CareerSource leads regional stakeholders in the effort to build upon existing successful strategies and spearhead collaborative, innovative efforts and address current and or projected skills gap. And we serve to improve the labor market with relevance to workforce investment, education, and economic development to provide workers with the skills and credentials necessary to secure employment with self-sustaining wages and to provide businesses with those skilled workers that the employers so need to succeed in our global economy. So with that, CareerSource Palm Beach County is very proud to present this portion of the plan to the committee. Thank you so very much.
All right, so we're going to do a quick little deviation from our original schedule of presentations, and we're going to go ahead and bring the safety and justice presentation up and have Elisa and Regina to present this domain because we do have one of the presenters that has to be somewhere at 10:30. So without further ado, Elisa, if you guys want to get started. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Oh, okay. Will do.
We're going to go over here.
Good morning again, everyone. So I'm Elisa Kramer. I'm the Acting Regional Managing Director for the Florida Department of Children and Families here in the Southeast region. And I really, before we jump in, I just want to say thank you to James and the whole CAC team, Community Services, Youth Services. Palm Beach County has been such a tremendous partner with the Department of Children and Families. As you have seen with these presentations, and also just looking at the ecosystem, any one of our organizations might fit in all domains. And that has been one of the things that has been exciting about participating in this process, is really seeing how far Palm Beach County has come in developing those partnerships that really allow our neighbors, residents here, to get the services they need, to find the access to the services, and really to communicate, across systems so that we are breaking down barriers and not putting up barriers for our residents. So thank you. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, Regina.
It's okay, we're working this out. I'm Regina Herring. I'm the Executive Director for the Palm Beach County Criminal Justice Commission. And I'm going to just echo what she's saying and just kudos to what she was saying regarding this whole collaborative effort. One of the uniquenesses about the CJC and its department, it's a collaborative body. It is not a single individual operation. It really works on the various departments at federal, state, local, and even private sector levels. So when you talk about the work, that's why what she was saying about the ecosystem, that's how we work. And it's interesting, and it's I'm very I'll say complimentary to James and his team in your work in this, because it really aligns with a lot of what we are wanting to do with the Criminal Justice Commission, because that is our edict, is to not just work within the system, but intersect and work with those agencies in those areas of government or even outside of, so that we do find those connections to how do we create a better society, less crime, opportunities for people. Poverty, we know, is a issue for many of our residents. So how do we work through that? And I think this is a great opportunity for us to really look across departments and find resolution. Don't make my job harder. It makes my job easier. Thank you. So we're going to go ahead and move forward. Go ahead.
Okay, so the goal for Palm Beach County is to promote, protect, maintain, and improve the safety of and the justice for its residents and visitors. And one of the things that this slide highlights is how safety and justice really does cover all of the domains. Every sector of our community is very much interested in the safety of our residents and making sure that we have access to the services that protect the most vulnerable in our community. And that's really what the safety and justice component is about. I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
No, and as you can see, the initiatives, those are a lot of the initiatives that across all of the different domains and even operations. So CJC has done evaluations and reviews of many of these initiatives. The next one, we talk about the backbone organizations. The CJC is one of the organizations, as is the Department of Children and Families, Palm Beach County Youth Services Department, the county's Public Safety Department, and the Florida Department of Juvenile Justice.
So the quality of services, and one note about the organizations, so those backbone organizations, as in every domain, you know, our systems of care don't work in a vacuum. So we have multiple agencies that we are representing as backbone agencies, but we have these strong partnerships that really look at the quality of our services, that look at how we can communicate to our communities, make sure that they know what is available in our community. And then we look for quality, we really look at what are those system issues that make it harder for folks to access services? And are we delivering the types of services that folks need? The right service at the right time, at the right intervention? Or are we pushing them down further into our systems where there is a crisis? How can we help them prevent getting to that crisis? Next slide, please.
The next one, we talk about accessibility, and this is one of the key, I think, elements to ensuring our residents improve and ensure our systems advance, is ensuring that they have accessibility to services. Also, that we're able to advocate for services and the needs of those things that we identify are lacking. So one of the things I think that we've done through the backbone agencies, and even as Elise was saying, the collaborative agencies, because it is beyond just those 5 agencies we listed as the leads. There are other partnering community-based organizations that we work with, private sector businesses that we work with. So the point of it is that we want to be able to identify, to evaluate, and advocate for those services and making sure that they are accessible to our community, to minimize risk, to improve opportunities and advancement. So that's one of the domains that the Safety and Justice Unit is addressing. Next slide.
So availability. What this portion of our team really looks at is how we can better leverage all of those funding sources, how we can work together to maximize the services and programs and initiatives that each one of us individually offers, so that we're not duplicating services, but we're making it more efficient for the folks who come to us with need. And I have to just say, Taruna is an excellent partner that way. She's always looking for ways that we can communicate, for example, with DCF customers who might be mutual customers of the county. Wendy, James, Tammy, we do, we're in conversations all the time about how our child welfare program, for example, or our adult protective services program, or folks who are coming through the economic self-sufficiency door can work with the county and vice versa. So it's all about trying to make the services easily available to our residents and to not duplicate, but really leverage the funding that's in place so that we can enhance those services, grow those services, reach more people.
And this is an area I think that we are working and striving to improve so that we do cross those lines, because as you all know, dealing with federal, state, or even some grant funding, that becomes a challenge. So we do have to be able to think outside the box of how do we align these resources, how do we coordinate it, and ensure that the services get to the right folks, the right time, and that's, I think, key to when we're talking about availability.
So accountability as well. You will not see DCF, for example, listed on this slide, but the Palm Beach County Community Alliance is one of our accountability metrics or measures. They're one of the groups that is looking at, are we doing what we say we are doing? Are we doing what needs to be done in the community? Are we living up to our mission? And that is all of these groups, the Board of County Commissioners, Birth to 22, Juvenile Justice Advisory Board, the Citizens Advisory Committee that we make up, all of these groups are in place to really make sure that there's checks and balances. So are we listening to our residents? Are we giving our residents voice? Are we heeding that voice and making sure that our services align with what the residents say they need, when they need it, in the manner that it needs to be delivered so that they can access it?
Coordination. When we deal with the coordination of services, you have here the CJC, Youth Services and Public Safety Justice Services, is coordinating with nonprofit organizations. We do that pretty well. We can improve, but I think we've been doing very well to coordinate with our local community-based organizations, foundations, faith-based entities, law enforcement, and other governmental entities, so that we're promoting and implementing and evaluating the needs of our vulnerable populations. So I just think we're in the right. This is a domain that I think is key to the success of this plan.
Thank
and
you.
that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's give them a big round of applause. So we're going to move to the transportation domain next.
Just as well.
As we prepare to transition to the transportation domain, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge someone that kind of keeps us all in line in terms of the law and the way that we're operating here, and that's Helene, our Assistant County Attorney. She's online. Helene, I just want to thank you for your wisdom and guidance as we continue to navigate again, this bureaucracy, and we really appreciate all of your efforts and what you do to help us to advance here in the Health and Human Services space. So thank you, Helene. All right, transportation. Levi.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Levi Mccallum. I'm the Planning Director at Palm Tran. I'm presenting along with my colleague, Lou Ferry, who is the Senior Manager of Paratransit at Palm Tran. Palm Tran recognizes the importance of mobility in Palm Beach County residents and visitors' lives. In fact, our internal mission here at Palm Tran is to provide a safe, efficient, and courteous public transit service. Next slide. This mission parallels the Palm Beach County Comprehensive Plan goals. Specifically in the transportation domain, we have multiple key goals, including providing a safe, efficient, and connected multimodal transportation system to ensure access for all folks. 2, maximizing health and human services supports for the system of care. And finally, implement an integrated, holistic approach to break down transportation barriers to increase access. Next slide. However, Palm Beach County and Palm Tran are not able to do this on our own. We collaborate with our community partners to achieve these goals. Other than Palm Tran, of course, the Palm Beach County Transportation Planning Agency is a critical part of the regional planning effort. With Palm Tran's focus on bus and paratransit operations, along with the TPA's comprehensive view of all transportation modes, we are considered the backbone organizations for the transportation domain. Next slide. Palm Tran has a targeted way for achieving the goals that I described. First, in our delivery of quality transportation services, we will collect and analyze the available data. However, not all data are numbers. There is a qualitative aspect to data as well that includes conversations and feedback from our county's residents, visitors, and stakeholders. We review key performance metrics such as on-time performance and transportation access to determine how we are serving the community, especially the most vulnerable populations. Next slide. Additionally, we will achieve our goals through evaluating the service's accessibility. Palm Beach County and the TPA examine where the transit propensity or the likelihood that people will use the service is the highest. We work to ensure that the folks who need the services, especially bus and paratransit, are able to benefit from our public mobility services. In fact, Palm Tran recently introduced our new dial-a-ride services in the Glades region called Go Glades. This new service, implemented during the pandemic, provides curb-to-curb access for folks in Belglade, Pahokee, and South Bay, in addition to frequent fixed route services. Next slide. Moreover, Palm Beach County and Palm Tran, along with the TPA, collaborate regularly with the municipal partners. For our fixed route bus service, we are often in communication with the cities regarding our bus stops because they are the gateway to our service. Palm Tran aims to improve access to our bus stops, provide additional amenities at these stops, and ensure they are in safe locations. Where our fixed route service doesn't operate, we are fortunate to have a robust paratransit and transportation disadvantage program that fills in the gaps for those who qualify, covering the entirety of the county. Next slide. To ensure that Palm Tran and Palm Beach County Community Services Department are holding ourselves accountable, we regularly evaluate how we are performing. The primary method for us to do this is through consistent data collection, as I previously mentioned, but more importantly, we generate reports on that performance. When we visualize the data into digestible formats, we can better understand the trends, highlight areas in need, and make better informed decisions regarding the delivery of transportation services. Next slide. Finally, Palm Tran and Palm Beach County are creating a feedback loop with our customers, the residents and visitors of our community, to gain valuable insight. It's critical that Palm Tran identifies the barriers that inhibit folks from using the public service. By better understanding these obstacles, Palm Tran, Palm Beach County, and the TPA can design a transportation network that works for everybody. Mobility is an essential part of our daily lives, especially for vulnerable populations. Palm Tran and Palm Beach County are dedicated to evolving our services so we can increase access for transit-dependent populations so these folks can have gainful employment, go to medical appointments, visit family and friends, and buy groceries and necessities for their homes. I'll turn it over to Julie now, who's going to discuss the food and hunger domain. Thank you all.
Morning, everyone. I'm Julie Creefel, Vice President for Hunger Relief with United Way of Palm Beach County. And what I'll be discussing this morning is all related to the Hunger Relief Plan that was put together by Palm Beach County government, administration, and also United Way of Palm Beach County with the Food Research and Action Center and the University of South Carolina. It is our role to oversee this plan and implement the plan. So the goal for Palm Beach County is to reduce local hunger by coordinating with community organizations, community stakeholders, leaders, and mobilize, support, and carry out the hunger relief plan strategies and goals, as I mentioned. We use the collective impact model, which James mentioned earlier. So as you can see, Palm Beach County supports the initiatives and efforts consistent with these goals and objectives with the plan. And we serve United Way of Palm Beach County as the lead agency for the Hunger Relief Plan. And again, United Way of Palm Beach County is the backbone organization for the plan, and we work with more than about 160 community partners on putting together initiatives and implementing our goals and strategies. The Community Service Department supports United Way of Palm Beach County Hunger Relief with our collection, analysis, and utilization of data. We do this from the local, state, and national resources and sources, and look at other qualitative means in reference to food and the nutritional needs of Palm Beach County residents, targeting our work carefully in the community. So the Community Services Department supports the United Way Hunger Relief Program and the plan with there's 10 goals and strategies and objectives. They also are supporting us in leading stakeholders to advocate for strong and robust programs and policies that reduce hunger and poverty. Again, that is at the state and national level that we work to create systemic change in policy. And then also County is working with us to create an interactive web-based GIS system that would, it's an application for food banks and for food pantries that will be hosted on the Palm Beach County server so that they can keep information up to date in real time. Community Services Department also allocates funding through the FAA program, and of course with advice from this group, Citizens Advisory Committee and Health and Human Resources. They also support us by providing information and resources with data and zip code information, and of course support us with all of our work groups and our Hunger Relief Advisory Council, and working side by side with residents, community leaders, and other stakeholders. And this all leads to the support of our annual goals, completing our annual goals and targets that align with the Hunger Relief Plan. This is all put together by our many community partners and volunteers. These targets measure progress year over year in reducing the number of food insecure individuals and families, and assess the need, the gaps, and the delineation of roles and responsibilities to make sure that we're not duplicating effort among providers. And that's done on an ongoing basis. So this last slide talks about the support that United Way of Palm Beach County Hunger Relief, United Way of Palm Beach County and the Hunger Relief Program receives. So we're guided by the Hunger Relief Advisory Council, which I mentioned. That's a group of 35 community leaders at the C-suite level, mostly from business, nonprofit, social services, and education. That group oversees 5 work groups, which concentrate on seniors, childhood hunger, the Glades, infrastructure, and SNAP outreach and hunger relief advocacy. This again is a diverse group of community partners that communicate and collaborate with using the collective impact model to combat hunger. And we share data and coordinate with these hunger relief work groups and community organizations and others to implement implement the Palm Beach County Hunger Relief Plan. And all of those strategies and tactics and initiatives are with an eye on sustainability, so that when we're done, the community keeps that to themselves, or can keep it going on their own. And then you can see the list of the work groups. And I will hand it over to Dr. Klinger.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tom Clear with the Healthcare District. I'm going to walk us through the health and wellness domain this morning. Next slide. The goal for the health and wellness domain is, for Palm Beach County, is to promote and provide the services that improve access to affordable health care, that support behavioral health integrated system of care, which then provides a continuum of services from prevention through treatment through aftercare, thereby promoting the health, safety, and quality of life for children, adults, and seniors. Next slide. The backbone organizations for this goal are several, include the Department of Health, Department of Children and Family, City of West Palm Beach, the U.S. Department of Justice, SAMHSA, Palm Health Foundation, the Healthcare District, the Criminal Justice Commission, Fire Rescue, Youth Services Department, the Sheriff's Office, and the Southeast Florida Behavioral Health Network. The health and wellness domain benefits from the work of several community assessments that take place, and they really help to prioritize for the health and wellness domain needs in the community, and really help to focus on areas for improvement and areas to focus on. This slide presents 4 of the needs assessments that are available: the Community Indicator Report, Securing Our Future Initiative, the Palm Beach County Behavioral Health Needs Assessment, as well as the Community Health Improvement Plan. And you can see this is just a very small sampling of numerous key indicators that are used to help guide programs and efforts in this domain, ranging from uninsured rate, to access to care, to adult psychiatric beds. There's just so many different measures that, this domain is really able to pull from to help pull together a really robust plan. Next slide. For quality of services, the policies identify the need to collaborate with organizations that survey health status and perform those assessments that we were talking about in the prior slide, to really help monitor and improve outcomes. And this slide identifies some of the ones we already saw in the prior one, as well as the Palm Beach County Socio-Demographic Barriers to Economic Mobility Report, the Leading the Way Home, Palm Beach County's Plan to End Homelessness, the report on health and human services in Palm Beach County, that community indicator report that was mentioned previously, the Healthy Start Community Assessment, the Healthy Start Service Delivery Plan, and really the list goes on. There's just a large number of assessments within this domain that are very helpful for the system of care. For the accessibility policies, the policies identify that lead organizations within the system of care will be leaned on to ensure that Palm Beach County residents have access to medical and behavioral health services. And the Citizens Advisory Committee and the Community Services Department will strategically allocate resources through the Financially Assisted Agency Program to help fill gaps as those are identified. For the availability policies, they identify that Palm Beach County will participate in funding and collaborating to assure the health, safety, and quality of life of its residents, and that efforts to reduce racial and ethnic inequalities are pursued with the available services. Next slide. For the accountability policies, they identify that using the assessment services will be reviewed by the Community Services Department, by the Citizens Advisory Committee on a periodic basis to help foster accountability within the system of care. And for coordination, the policies identify that Palm Beach County will work collaboratively with community partners throughout the system of care and ensure that the health and wellness is well coordinated and provides a continuum of services that meet the needs of Palm Beach County's residents, students, and families. Thank you. Now, Keith Oswald will take on the education domain.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I want to thank the CAC for the opportunity for the school district to participate in this important work, and obviously the collaboration that we have with, I think, about every agency that has been presenting here today. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. So we go to the next slide. The goal of the school district and for Palm Beach County is to graduate all of our students with a world-class education. So that includes a standard high school diploma and prepared to either enter through the workforce or go directly into a post-secondary institution. So a lot has to happen in a large system as Palm Beach County. As most of you know, we're a large school district, 10th largest in the country, serving a lot of students, especially when you include parochial as well as charter schools. So Palm Beach County School District, we work through collaboration of many agencies and coalitions here in Palm Beach County. On the next slide, the backbone organization here in Palm Beach County is obviously the school district, as well as Palm Beach State College. Palm Beach, 50% of our graduates, and Dr. Kane knows this statistic, matriculate directly into Palm Beach State College. So it's essential that Palm Beach State College is a big partner in this work, as well as many others. Both are part of the Birth to 22 Alliance. As we go into the quality of services, so obviously student achievement, which is our primary business, happens in the classroom. So making sure that we create an environment that's positive and supportive for each and every one of our students it is critical, and that the curriculum and the instruction that is in front of those students is of high quality so that they can get that end goal of a world-class education. In addition, we collaborate with many, many agencies, and I do have to do a shout out to the voters of Palm Beach County and everyone here for the support of the referendum. When it comes to mental and behavioral health services, we were able to greatly expand over the last couple of years the support to our students through that collaboration for behavioral and mental health services. So we work with many agencies that provide services right on our school campuses to ensure that our students are supported. Especially in light of the pandemic, we are seeing an increased demand for that type of services. In addition, the collaboration with Birth to 22 has been critical over the years, and being part of that since its inception and prior, that work and the coalitions that are happening has made a lot of that a reality in our school district. In addition, Youth Services Department, another key player. So appreciate Tammy and all her support through the years, especially with the trauma-informed environment and the work that's going on that, so that our educators are supporting our students effectively, as well. The out-of-school time is a critical component that continues to grow and be a priority for the quality of services we're providing our students when out of school time. On the next slide, accessibility. So this is a real important area that we expand strategies to promote access to educational opportunities. We know that through the pandemic, there have been many more challenges put on our families. We are still trying to locate many of our families that have yet to enroll, right? So where we call whereabouts unknown. In addition, we know that families have a choice and opportunity. So making sure that education is accessible, we continue to prioritize that work. In addition, work with Palm Beach State College and our CTE programs, not just in the K-12 system, but also in adult education. Birth to 22, in collaboration with Palm Beach State College, will also continue to provide more accessibility for our students. We've seen a decrease in enrollment into post-secondary through the pandemic, so we know that there's, again, many more hardships put on our family, and this work will have to continue to rise to be a priority in the future. as well as our disconnected youth. As I just mentioned, there are many students that we have learned that through the pandemic that had to take on new roles in their family situation, entering directly into the workforce, bring income into the home, right, to make sure there's a roof over their heads. So we need to continue to get those youth reconnected and back in school. Palm Beach County will also continue GED through the Community Action Program, and transportation, as we know, can always be that barrier, as we just heard, that Tram being able to support our families to make sure they get the access to where they need to be. The next slide. So, choice. So we got to continue to evolve as a school district and making sure that the programs that we're putting in front of our students and our families are those that are relevant to our community, going to meet the economic demands and the workforce demands here in Palm Beach County. So whether it's our CTE programs, our charter programs, home education, accelerated coursework, we've got to continue to evolve to make sure that we meet that demand. We've seen, we know that our choice programs are extremely popular here in Palm Beach County, and we continue to collaborate with many different agencies to make that more relevant here in Palm Beach County. And as well as through Palm Beach County and its Youth Services Department, we'll continue to push and educate others about the availability of what's available to our families. The next slide. Comes to accountability on a regular basis. Is a goal that we will provide updates to the county commissioners. We are part of Birth to 22 and the steering committees, giving updates there, as well as the school board and the CAC. Here, updates on the work that is happening when it comes to this particular domain of education. As we know, we touch all four corners of here in Palm Beach County. In addition, obviously there's many collaborations with CAC, the Youth Services Department, Palm Beach State College, and many others that we work together with on this piece. And when it comes to coordination, again, if an agency isn't listed here, we know we work with just about probably everybody that has been presenting today. Obviously, we cannot do this alone. We need the partnerships to coordinate to make sure this is a reality. From CareerSource, who's constantly collaborating with us, working with the Business Development Board, again, to making sure that, you know, what we always hear from them, when different companies that are trying to move here in Palm Beach County want to know about education. So, right, so can you get a world-class education in Palm Beach County? The housing and the situation of our homeless, collaborating with Palm Beach County through that work. So Birth to 22 is going to, that work to continue to collaborate in the different areas of focus there, as well as we heard from the healthcare district and addressing the health needs of our families. We continue to evolve and have regular meetings there to ensure that we're addressing, especially in light of what's occurred over the last couple of years, and the hunger relief. So work that is just presented earlier. Again, so as part of the school district, we're happy to be part of this work, and we'll continue to provide updates. So, and again, thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, so I guess last but not least is the childcare section. Last on your list, but first because it's children, it's where it all starts, so I had to put that in. So my PowerPoint may look a little different. I didn't copy and paste quite as much out of the plan, so if you're trying to follow along and you really like all the words, I would refer, you have the draft of the element, I believe, and this section starts at page 29. So if you want to see more of the language, I think more of the presentation is just bullet points. So next slide. So the goal for childcare is to improve the accessibility of high quality, those are the two important words, accessibility and high quality early childhood education and after school care that promotes developmentally appropriate practices leading to children being ready to start and succeed in kindergarten and throughout their school years. So it's early childhood education. That is a term that is used often instead of childcare to emphasize that it's not just babysitting, it's not just about supervising kids, although that's certainly important that they be safe and they be supervised, but it's about teaching, it's about child development, it's about early childhood education, and that also extends into after-school care. So it's developmental from a cognitive standpoint, but also from a social and emotional learning standpoint. If you think of it as school readiness, you think of it as not just the reading, writing aspect of school, but that they're actually ready to learn in all aspects, emotionally, behaviorally, all aspects. Next slide. The backbone organizations locally is the Early Learning Coalition, and I know Aruna, I believe, is also online, and Rachel Mondesi's here as well, so they can answer probably more questions than I could. And the Children's Services Council. We provide a significant amount of local funding committed to the quality of the accessibility and the quality of childcare locally. There's also other key partners, certainly the Youth Services Department. Tammy is here, a major role, especially when it comes to summer camps, but also in promoting quality childcare and after-school programming as well. And of course, the school district, Palm Beach State College, the Children's Forum, and also Lutheran Services of Florida, which it seems like it was a long time ago, but I know some people still think the county runs the Head Start program, but that's actually provided by Lutheran Services of Florida. And while their funding comes directly from the federal government, they do coordinate quite a bit with the Early Learning Coalition and the whole system of childcare that we have in the county. Next slide. So I thought it was particularly great for us that the first category we cover is quality, because that is what we put a significant number of resources in Palm Beach County, and are actually considered leaders in this area nationwide and in the state of Florida. The state of Florida has started to focus more on quality of childcare, and one of the places they've looked at as a model for that is Palm Beach County, because we have put so much effort into that. So we research and evaluate the delivery of quality services. We evaluate and particularly increase the capacity of quality childcare programs, and I'll be mentioning more about that. But we have a large number of scholarships. We use incentives for professional development, and we have a whole system of care that is in place. Not that it can't be improved, and not that we don't evolve it, but this is one of the areas on that wheel where we do have a high-performing system of care already in place. I'm certainly not going to go into the details of the slide, but it kind of visually shows that there is already a network of the organizations that I mentioned on the backbone slide that collaborates, that builds this system of improving quality care in the county. And at the bottom, the Children's Services Council there, because again, we do invest a lot of our funds locally into that system of care. It's one of the areas that we put probably our most funds, is the accessibility and quality of childcare. Next slide. And so why support quality childcare? Well, childcare not only allows parents to go to work, you really only need to keep kids safe for that, but it's also that it's the critical moment of brain development. A child's brain develops more in those first few years than it does the rest of their lives. Yet we often put, from a national level, the least amount of resources into that. So one of the things Children's Services Council has tried to do with our local funds that come from our local taxpayers is try to rebalance that and put a significant amount of our funding into those early years, into ensuring that children are born healthy, but also that they're developing at those early ages, so when they start school, they're ready to learn. Next slide. And so there is a Strong Minds quality system, quality network, and I won't go again into the details of all these bullet points, but there's a variety of programs that we fund. There's a variety of ways that we promote teacher professional development. Really the key in childcare, of course, is the teachers themselves and the instruction that they're providing. So we have scholarships available, we have salary supplements, technical assistance that's provided. So a lot of that system, again, is focused on improving the quality of childcare in the county. Next slide. As far as accessibility, that is really where the Early Learning Coalition shines. They have a centralized wait list. They are a central point where a variety of funding sources are blended together of all our systems of care in the county, and I've been around a long time. I've never seen anybody that does such an effective job of blending funding sources as the Early Learning Coalition. So they have federal money that comes in terms of subsidized childcare. They have state dollars that come in, like the VPK program. They have funding from the Children's Services Council for scholarships, from the Youth Services Department for summer camps and other improvements to that system. And they do a wonderful job of blending those funds and really maximizing so that they are drawing in all the available funds that they can. And they also coordinate, as I said, with Lutheran Services to make sure that Head Start doesn't exist as some kind of completely separate system as well. And this just provides a little bit more detail. I won't go too much into that, but would certainly be able to answer questions if anybody wants to know more. But that a little bit more about how they integrate funding sources. Next slide. As far as availability, we do look annually. We do a zip code analysis that does include looking at what the expected need would be for childcare and who is accessing childcare now and how that lays out geographically. And also another effort are the early learning collaboratives that have been done in certain neighborhoods in the counties. I know the first one was in Riviera Beach, where it's really working more with neighborhoods, those neighborhood providers, and trying to improve the quality of care, but much more responsive to what the neighborhoods and those providers in those geographic areas are seeing as the gaps and the needs. Next slide. So as far as accountability, we do that at 2 levels. I'll take the second one first, and that is kind of overall, how would we know that we're improving school readiness? Well, actually, there's an assessment done. Those of you that have kids that have accessed the school district, whether you knew it or not, when they started kindergarten, there was an assessment done, and that is done throughout the whole state. And so we do have that data and analyze that data and use that data to assess the quality of what we're doing. And then at the center level, there's also quality assessments that are done of child care centers using a tool called the CLASS, and also at the after-school level by Primetime uses a similar tool. And I know I have a slide. The next slide, it goes in more detail. I won't in particular, other than to note that this CLASS assessment, again, focuses a lot more on the caregiving and the teacher interaction. It's not just about going in and seeing if they have the right signs on the wall or the right building structure. That's part of it. But it's also much more about how is the teacher interacting with the child. Next slide. And then as far as coordination, so I've mentioned this, the Early Learning Coalition really is a central hub for that. They provide information and referral services. They draw all the funding in, and I mentioned that already. In the after-school environment, it's really Primetime that takes that lead role, and an effort they really have advanced, and I know Tammy could speak more about this than me, but the social emotional learning aspect and how after-school programs are a great place to actually work on that aspect of child development, providing a safe area, a safe place for kids to deal, especially when you think of what they've been through in the last couple years. After-school programs are a great environment to help kids with that, as well as the ACEs and their adverse childhood experiences. And also the Youth Services Department, though, is really the lead in terms of coordinating summer camp scholarships. And I think that is it. There's a couple of slides that just provide more detail on that. And again, there's a couple representatives from Early Learning Coalition that could speak if you see anything in there you have questions about. And I don't know who I'm turning it over to, but I'm done with childcare.
All right, thank you. Tammy or Rachel or Aruna, you guys have anything that you'd like to add?
Well, we ended up doing so many extra slides that we decided to just let Randy go for it. So
Okay.
go through the whole thing.
All right.
I think he covered it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. So it looks like we're back on track, which is great. But I want to mention before we take our break, what are we doing here? Like, why are we sharing this information with you? We're sharing it with you because we probably have missed something, and we need more eyes on the work that we're doing and what we're adding to the element to make sure that we have broader input so that we can make the necessary tweaks to the element prior to it going through the process. I mean, and even it's not just for you to kind of vet through your eyes, but it also gives us as staff, as a Citizens Advisory Committee, another look. We've seen these domains presented individually, and we've seen them now presented collectively. And inevitably, there's going to be something that we pick up from the information that was shared that we might want to make some changes to. Like, for instance, I know when I look at the element in more detail, and again, we've sent this information to you via email and encourage you to take a look at it as well. But when I look at it in more detail, I see that there's some components in the behavioral health section that we definitely want to acknowledge. Like we have our resident drug czar here, John Hewlett. Raise your hand, John, who's a real champion in this space, really doing what he can to help bring our system partners together and to make sure that we have a system of care that is effective. And in the element, I saw information about care coordination, but I didn't see it explicitly talking about the recovery-oriented system of care. And that is a key component to the work that we are doing here in Palm Beach County. And so that gives me the indication that I need to, make sure that we connect with John and other partners to get another set of eyes on this and to make sure that we're shaping it according to how our system is currently functioning and how we're planning to function in the future. And so there may be things like that you see or that you have noticed, and we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to read through the element and to provide any input that you have prior to it moving forward throughout this process. Okay? So any questions or comments before we take a break? We're going to take a break. Hopefully you guys were writing down your questions and sharing your comments in the chat. After we come back from the break, we'll have an opportunity to just converse about the information that you heard and to hear from our system partners and those of you who are participating online. Try to get some of those questions answered or hear some of your comments. And then I'll share our next steps, the next phase of this work, and then we will dismiss for today. So any questions before we get started? Before we take our break, rather. All right, so we will be back at 10:40. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started, and we'll start with, I'm going to have Tammy just say a few words to make sure that you guys are aware of a great accomplishment that's taking place in Palm Beach County, and then we'll get to the question and answering period, and then move on to our next steps beyond the element. Tammy?
Thank you, James. I'm sure many of you have seen this in the newspapers and on television, but Palm Beach County recently was selected by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation as a Culture of Health Prize winner. And this means we now join 54 communities across the country who have received this honor. This year, we were one of 4 in the United States. And I think that this collaborative work that we're doing is a major reason why this award was won. For those of you who aren't familiar with Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, it is the world's largest health philanthropic organization. So this is a really significant achievement that Palm Beach County was selected. The application process took us over a year. We had 2 rounds of essays and then interviews, and then they came and videotaped in our community. It's been quite a process, but they really commented about how many different entities work together. One of the other things they pointed out is how we support citizen-led initiative, like with our Healthier Together communities. They commented on the focus on youth, and I definitely saw that in a lot of the aspects of this plan, but that we do have this focus on youth, understanding that, we've got to get them off to the right start to have a healthier community overall. And they also commented on the emphasis on equity and our emphasis on accountability and making sure that we're tracking what our results are. We're not just saying this is what we want to do and implement a program and then have it not find out whether or not it worked. So those were all of the things that they found to be key aspects of why Palm Beach County was deserving of the award. The award, with the amount of work that went into it, it would have been nice if we'd gotten $1 million prize. We got a $25,000 prize, but what's great is that there are many other organizations that are matching that, so we'll be able to continue some of the initiatives. And the other thing is we're now part of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation inner circle, so to speak, which means that other grant opportunities are going to be available to us. There will be, this entire year, there will be events that will be held. And I've already noticed, just being on their listserv, the amount of community asks a question, how are you handling this? And all of these communities across the United States are saying, oh, we're doing this and we're doing this, and it's a great way of sharing ideas. So it's really exciting that we've been acknowledged this way, and I want to thank the CAC members, because what you do is part of the reason why we won in having this coordination and having this Health and Human Services element. We actually attached the Health and Human Services element to the application in one of the essays as an example of our coordination in our community.
Right. I think that deserves a big round of applause. Thank you, Tammy, so much for your incredible leadership and for the work that you and so many others have helped facilitate here in Palm Beach County. I think it's a great indication of the direction that we're headed in as a county. So I'm going to invite Ann Caroline to come down. Or do you have your computer there?
No.
Okay.
But I actually, yes, it works. Hi. I actually asked them, I do have just one comment.
Sure.
Can I make it and then come down?
Absolutely,
I think
yes.
we were going to do in-the-room questions to start. So I asked them
Yes.
if it was okay for me to stay up here.
That's fine.
Just a really quick comment. I love the fact that you included the racial equity component. I think it was really important. But I know I had this conversation before, and I just want to stress it again. When we're talking about access to health and human services, I just want us to always just be mindful that there are different types of discrimination, right? And we talk about whether it's the Bill of Rights or even human right law, and there are so many different types of potential discriminations that it's just really important for us to keep our minds open based on sex, religion, the list is so long, and so I just want us to be really mindful of that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'm down now.
All right, any other comments? So do you have any questions? Anyone have any questions? Anyone in the audience or anyone online? Any questions that you'd like to have answered?
James, what type of questions are we taking? Any questions?
Any questions?
Okay.
So one of the things that we asked those who are in the audience and participating online to do was to jot down any questions they have related to the domains and the presentations so that we can take this time to answer them. So if this is the time that we're creating to do just that. Dr. Siskowski?
So I have a question, and it's probably related to my own ignorance, but I'm wondering, what are we really doing in terms of prevention for homelessness?
Yeah, so there is quite a bit that is happening in the prevention world. So I'll start answering that, and then I'll turn it over to Taruna to kind of share things that I may have missed.
Okay,
but-
and just as a
Oh, no,
follow-up comment
sure.
on that, is that with the work that we do with caregiving families who are vulnerable families, we kind of have boots on the ground.
Sure.
Because we do home visits, and I wonder if there's, an opportunity for a new kind of cooperation to further that prevention.
Yes, we're always looking for those opportunities to collaborate, especially with the categories that we named as vulnerable populations, which caregiver youth is certainly one of those. In response to your question, we know that prevention is a key component of our work. It's something that is listed in our Leading the Way Home homeless plan to break the cycle of homelessness, and it's something that we've invested in for a number of years now. We do a lot of rental assistance, utility assistance, whether that's providing supports with the utility bills or the electric bills, or even right now we have the grocery cart program that we're pushing out, and that creates disposable income that allows our families to pay their rent. And over the past year alone, we've pushed out, along with our community partners, close to maybe $85–90 million in rental assistance through the CARES Act, through the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, and now we are working with the Recovery Act funds. But we were doing a lot of prevention work prior to those funding streams coming on board. Community Services has a number of federal funding sources, state funding sources, and ad valorem dollars that we use for prevention, and that is a key component and strategy towards breaking the cycle of homelessness. And so, Taruna, if you have anything else that you'd like to add?
Yeah, just to add what we are trying to do now, like the clients coming for rental and utility assistance, not just to provide them with a rent assistance, but really include them in our self-sufficiency program, so help them to improve their livelihoods by increasing a skill for them, getting them involved in some additional job training, skill improvement training, or even if somebody is interested in entrepreneurship programs. So that's what we have been now strategically working with, looking at the risk factor of that family and seeing how we can improve the livelihoods of those families. And it's really important because we really want to make sure that we are not just providing a service, but we really want to see how we can help them to be self-sufficient themselves. Another thing which we are really trying to help with our families is to connect them with a lot of our other partners to access the same service which we are providing. So as part of what you heard about the domains, and one of the goal is to access of services. So we have created a lot of landing station, if that's what I've been calling it, landing stations for a lot of our case managers, libraries. Client can go anywhere in those libraries or landing stations to access services, and they get the same dollar amount or same kind of assistance. We have also seen that it's so important for our clients to get that information quickly, and the same amount, same kind of information, doesn't matter whom they contact. So we have strengthened our contact center, and we are moving towards, in the next few weeks, you will be hearing that we are launching 24/7 for our homeless line. Currently, our homeless line is 8 to 5. Our prevention line will be still 8 to 5, but we are going to have 24/7 services for our homeless clients. We will have a case manager available 24/7, access them to the services. This will be specifically for the clients who are homeless, on the street, couch surfing. There's a lot of work right now happening with school board. We are connecting a lot of families from school board, referrals coming from the school board to connect them to the programs we have. This is a great opportunity at this time with the money which has been coming to us from the federal resources. We are working very closely with Jonathan Group because his funding provides a lot of infrastructure kind of support for prevention programs. So we have been very strategic which funding to use where, so that we can create opportunities and some long-term infrastructure for our community.
Yeah, and ultimately, and I'll let Jonathan answer this question as well, but, you know, the eviction prevention partnerships with Legal Aid Society and Florida Rural Legal Services, they continue to be very effective, and we're working to move further upstream, not to just prioritize and serve those individuals who have evictions filed with the court, but we've been going from community to community, working with legal aid to work with families who have received a 3 to 5 day eviction notice to prevent them from having that notice filed through the court system. And we know that with the dramatic increase that we're seeing in the cost of rent here in Palm Beach County, that we're looking at a tsunami headed to this county. And we know that there's something that we have to do. So we've convened a housing committee as a part of the Homeless and Housing Alliance, and they're going to be looking at a broader, more comprehensive strategy around prevention, and specifically looking at not just the programs that we're mentioning, but policy and how we can make policy recommendations at the local, state, and federal level in order to prevent individuals from being homeless, which ultimately means that we need to get more affordable housing online, housing that our working class citizens can actually afford. So I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan, and he's going to talk a little bit about some of his work.
And yeah, I would just like to say that it's not just people who have not been able to pay their rent, but whose homes, whose landlords have taken this opportunity with increased ability to sell their homes, that they're selling them, and then families have to move, and there's no available place for them to go that's an equivalent rent. And so, you know, that's another big piece of this puzzle.
Yep.
And then in addition to that, a couple things that we do and we've been doing. One is providing mortgage assistance. And it may not seem a lot, but as you can imagine, throughout this pandemic, there are people who are used to owning their homes, low to moderate income people who are put in a situation where they can no longer afford their homes because maybe they lost their job or they lost an income. And so we provided mortgage assistance, which again provides prevention from homelessness. We also offer a foreclosure prevention program for those who have progressed to the point of lis pendens and beyond, and we're helping to preserve their homes. And one of the things that we've recently done out in the Glades community, I mean, we had two of our seniors who are living on fixed incomes whose homes were no longer habitable. In collaboration with community services, we were able to come in to demolish their homes, rebuild them new homes. Community services placed them while we did that. So, you know, there are still vulnerable populations out there that we're helping. And in our case, for our department, they're most often homeowners that we're trying to keep as some of our seniors are even trying to age in place.
Scott?
This question's for the FAA providers, the agencies that get funded. Can you expand on how the new changes to the element should be looked at by the funded agencies when they look at a NOFO? In the past, the element has provided benchmarks, and if you followed the element and what was important to the county as expressed in the element, you pretty much hit on the things that the Community Services Department wanted in order to fund you. So can you expand on that?
Yes, and so much of the next portion, when we start talking about beyond the element, will cover some of the things that you're asking. For those of you who are not aware, Scott, when he talks about benchmarks, he's really pointing to the indicator report that we use, that red, yellow, and green light that shows where we're in trouble and where we're doing well, and allowing that allowing our Board of County Commissioners to use that as an indicator of where we need to be investing more. And so we certainly have another process that I'll be sharing with you as we talk about moving beyond the element that we're hoping to institute. But ultimately, the way that it ties into the way the element is depending on which domain. So the Board of County Commissioners have 6 strategic priorities, and 3 of those priorities, or really 4, are ones that the Community Services Department plays a significant role in. Those priorities would be housing and homelessness, behavioral health and substance use disorders, and economic development, which we do a lot in the workforce development area. And so each year, on a staggered schedule, we have one of those 3 categories that is a competitive category for our financially assisted agencies. This year, in the first quarter of 2022, we'll be releasing the Notice of Funding Opportunity for Economic Stability and Mobility. And to show you kind of how the work that we're doing within the element ties into that process, we'll first look to our system leaders and our system partners like CareerSource and work to gather data and to determine where the gaps are. We'll also look at the internal data that we have collected. We'll host community conversations. We've already done that. We hosted 4 of 5 community conversations to hear from our residents who are impacted and unable to participate in the workforce or are underemployed or making less than a living wage. And we've gotten input from them to determine where we need to be aligning our investments or investing strategically based on their feedback. And then so the next step would be to roll that up together. I think we had talked about doing a survey as well to reach a broader group of our residents. And we did that 2 years ago. We sent a survey out to all of our health and human services providers, and they allowed their clients to complete that survey, and that gave us a lot of good information. We rolled all of that up and issued our NOFO, and we specifically focus on 2 areas. Economic stability, that's focusing primarily on those individuals who cannot work, our seniors, and some others. And we know that a portion of those individuals actually can work, developmentally disabled and seniors. But we focus on economic stability to make sure that those individuals have the supports they needed in order to remain stable. And we have a specific measure looking at disposable income. So we want to make sure that they increase their disposable income because seniors and others are on a fixed income, and one crisis puts them on a downward spiral. And so those agencies that submit to support those vulnerable groups, the whole idea is to prevent that downward spiral and to make sure that they're stable. And then we have the economic mobility, and that's oriented towards individuals who actually can work and making sure that we provide them with supports that they need in order to not just to gain employment, but to advance economically, to continue to earn more and improve their household income. And so the Securing Our Future initiative, that's what they focus on. We have a number of partners who are involved with that. But when we issue that NOFO and we look at the gaps within the system of care, we're taking the information that we get from our system partners and through our process to identify what those gaps are, and specifically asking agencies to who is willing to provide services that will help fill that gap, whether it's in a geographical location, whether it's with a certain population of individuals that we're looking to serve. And when we ask them to submit, Many times we're asking them about their service delivery approach. How are they considering racial equity? How are they considering equity and those other intersectionalities to make sure that their staff are properly trained, that we're communicating to those groups in a way that allows them to participate equitably? It's all integrated and folded up into our process. And then once it's issued, we have a monitoring team that goes in and they monitor them according to the outcomes that we developed, aligned with those gaps. And then we circle back around, and the accountability portion comes with us sharing with the CAC and those other bodies how we're progressing with those goals. Okay?
James, is the mic
on? No. James, what I'd like to talk about is a series of successful CCRT meetings that we had, that you played a pivotal role with regard to a family that was in Belgrade. It was a family of 6, pregnant woman, and they were homeless. They had no place to live. You provided hotel expenses for them. And you know, when you deal with poverty, it is so complex and so difficult that this played out over a 2-month period. So we would get reports from the 1 month of what occurred. You provided the hotel expense. Then we found out they were coming out of the hotel. They didn't have a place. You got vouchers for them to have a home, and we're all excited about it. Then they come in, and Community Partners was their spokesperson for us. And then they would say, well, Mr. Tate, we want to tell you that they have a home, but now they have no clothing, they have no furniture. And what played out was just enormous support from Palm Beach County. We had Joanne Akins introduced us to a family in Boca. That family provided a 12-foot cabinet with the television. Then she said that played out that month, and well, Mr. Tate, but they need a refrigerator and a stove. And we were going to all of our partners, and we were trying to get them a stove and refrigerator because we would do a weekly food distribution. Well, you can't give them food if they don't have a refrigerator. And lo and behold, we had a donor that came in and provided the refrigerator and the stove. So my point I'm making is I think because we acted so expeditiously that now people who are having these difficulties, and we know we can't do this with everyone, but it at least showed that under a microscope how Palm Beach County is responding to these things. And now when I listen to residents that come in our CCRT meetings, they have a sense of trust. Jonathan did an excellent job in his presentation. They actually now are responding back to his department. Before, people would come to the CCRT meeting, listen to what we had to say. They did nothing with it because they didn't trust that I'm really going to get help when I need it. And I'm just here to tell you that the county, and I'm going to compliment you in particular, because we acted so quickly. I mean, you could see it in the emails. I'm writing you at 5 o'clock, you're giving me an answer at 8 o'clock. And it played out with the public saying, you know what, you can come to the CCRT meeting and you can actually get help. And I just want to thank you for responding. I also thank Jonathan for part that he played. But this works. Now, I know you have a difficulty in trying to figure out how the system works, but what plays an important part to this, people have to believe that when they come to us, this bureaucracy, that there is an opportunity for them to get service.
Absolutely.
And I see that change, so thank you very much.
Absolutely. And all thanks and all credit goes to our amazing team. We have an amazing homeless outreach team that, they're out there doing this work consistently and linking individuals to the supports and the services that they need. We have an excellent leadership team and an executive team that really puts their heart into their work. And we have excellent community partners that are willing to collaborate and to do whatever we can. We still have a long way to go. There's still a lot of hiccups that we experience as we do this work. But as long as we can keep the focus on where we want to go, I think we'll continue to see the levels of success that you're mentioning. And I do want to mention that even though we don't see a lot of municipalities and faith-based entities in this room, that we do have a number of ways that we've engaged and connected with them and the business community as well. And we're going to continue to engage with our faith-based community, our Faith in Action Palm Beach County, on homeless prevention efforts. They did a great job with Sadowski and advocating for Sadowski and making sure that the community was aware of those funds that come down through ship and sale and help us with housing rehab and things of that nature. It goes to Jonathan's shop and also helps us with providing incentives to developers so that they can bring more affordable housing online at a reasonable rate. And so we want to continue to engage our faith-based community, our municipalities, and our business community in this overall effort. They are not left out of this equation, and we want to continue to do what we can to leverage all of the supports across all of our sectors to do the work that we're talking about here today. So, other questions?
I have a question online from Nina Gutierrez asking, what kind of new funding opportunities can we expect in 2022 for nonprofits?
All right. So there are a number. I mentioned the competitive categories. I think we only have one this year, which is economic stability and mobility. And so there will be opportunities for providers to submit proposals based on the strategic priorities that we've developed and to participate that way. We have the American Rescue Plan that the board has accepted. I think there's $290 million that came to Palm Beach County, and we'll have until 2025 to expend those dollars. And I know that we are looking at ways to utilize some of our providers to provide some of the services that are available through that rescue plan. It's not a whole lot, but there's some, especially in the area of food and hunger. So those are some opportunities, but be mindful of the fact that we work with a number of funders throughout the county. Randy Palo, and we have two funders group. Are you over both of them? I think Randy's over both of them. So one is for disaster-related issues to make sure that we can provide supports to our nonprofit providers before, during, and after disasters. And then the other is just a group where all the funders come together and we talk about emerging issues and make sure that we are working together to collaborate to address those. One example would be during the COVID-19 crisis, the county worked with a number of providers to institute a community health worker program to really get out. These are trusted voices within the community that could go out and educate our community members about the myths and and misinformation related to COVID and the vaccine, to distribute PPE, to help the Department of Health and the contact tracers to connect to individuals that were non-responsive through the calls and the text messages that were sent. And those community health workers played a pivotal role in communicating vital information needed to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. But the funding was limited to December the 31st, and I shared that with our funders group, and that group was able to come together and to allocate some funding to continue the community health worker program. And that's what it's designed to do, is really to work collaboratively with our system partners and to figure out where the gaps are and to strategically allocate resources to fill the gaps. So.
Question, and this question is for Mr. Brown, has to do with homeless population in Palm Beach County. So I wanted to ask, what are the availability, or maybe better yet, are we able to cope with the need of the homeless in Palm Beach County for housing? And my next thought on it is that, do we have any surveys or any measures in place to hear the voices of the homeless And I know some of my staff, they talk to me, they tell me when they stop in the street and they talk to the homeless, individuals, they would make mention that they'd rather be on the street than be in a home because they feel safer. And I was like, I don't know how that sounds. They feel safer being on the street, maybe true, maybe based on their experience. So I don't know if you have any measures or any survey in place to capture the voices of the homeless.
So with regards to that, James and Taruna probably will be the better ones to ask. Where our department would come into place is that if there is a housing agency that's looking to serve the homeless, we assist by providing gap financing for them to develop housing for the homeless. But in terms of direct contact or communication with the agencies and the service providers, that would be community services more than my team.
Yeah, and I'm happy to answer that question as well. So our Homeless and Housing Alliance is led by an individual who experienced homelessness. And for those of you who are not familiar with HHA, it's a group of around 60 to 70 providers, including the county, that comes together and really organizes in this space and provides the necessary services. So that is one group that really focuses on community voice and getting feedback. But before we issued the NOFO for the homelessness category several years ago, when we developed the Leading the Way Home plan, I conducted focus groups with individuals at the Lewis Center in our shelters who are homeless to get feedback from them on what they're seeing and, more importantly, what they thought some of the solutions were, things that they would need, supports they would need in order to move into permanent housing, get the job, and move towards self-sufficiency. So those are just some of the ways that we've connected with individuals who are experiencing homelessness. But our HOT team, they're consistently out there every single day listening and trying to work with and build relationships with individuals who are homeless. And so we certainly want to make sure that we're listening and integrating what they have to say to our work.
And just to add, we do point in time every year, though HUD requires us to do it every 2 years, but we do it every year, and that's a great way for us to not just to survey how many homeless we have in the community, but really use those experiences and have those conversations with them to include that information when we are doing strategic planning. And on our HAB board, we do have one seat for the people living with the living experience as well, and that's also a way for us to get that information or the voices from the homeless population.
Randy, did you have a question? Oh, no. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you all for the presentation. I have something to add for health and wellness. I want to add that the Department of Health also we have a lot of programs, diabetes prevention for all.
Can you come and speak into the mic for those who are, for those who are online so that they can hear?
Thank you for the presentation. Yes, I want to add that the DOH, Department of Health, we have a lot of programs as well. I want to add a mention that we have diabetes prevention for all, and we have also tobacco-free Florida, and opioid drug prescription monitoring education. We do have Healthiest Weight Initiative, and also SNAP-Ed, which is Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, where 90% of my participants, they don't have access to the SNAP benefits. I just want to add that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your feedback and your comments. And I'm sure you saw too on the presentation, the Community Health Improvement Plan is that is the script. And I know it includes a lot of those initiatives that the Health Council of Southeast Florida, they facilitate the accountability aspect of the Community Health Improvement Plan. And there are a number of health initiatives that are tied into that plan. And so it's our way of really being able to keep our fingers on the pulse of everything that's going on within those various domains. So the key here is to have a go-to person, right? So when someone, and we get these calls all the time, when there's a provider that is looking to, say, provide something related to food, the first thing that I think about is I think about Julie. I think about the hunger relief plan and those broad, comprehensive planning efforts. And I send them to Julie because I know that Julie has her finger on the pulse of what's happening throughout the entire county. And by having a backbone organization that's tied into all of those efforts, she's then able to redirect those individuals to areas where the gaps exist. And that's kind of how we envision this system of care working. If someone's doing something in the housing and homelessness space, then we want to make sure that they're connected to the Community Services Department and the Homeless and Housing Alliance, and they're plugged into those broader planning efforts so that we can leverage the resources that they're providing to fill gaps within our system of care. And so thank you for your comments, and certainly we want to make sure that we are utilizing many of these initiatives to advance the goals that are outlined in the plan, in the element. Any other questions or comments before we get to beyond the element?
James, I have one other question. I'm wondering if anyone is using experience learning in order to provide certifications. I'm thinking particularly of adult family caregivers who are no longer caregiving, who could get certified, because we do have a shortage of workers and facilities in nursing homes and home care, as well as certainly with caregiving youth, so that, you know, maybe by the time they're ready to go to college, they can also have a certification so that they could work and continue to help their families and themselves.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and certainly an area that we can explore further. I know that the Area Agency on Aging, they do a lot of trainings and certifications on caregiving for seniors. And but in terms of caregiving, and I know that they provide trainings to the caregivers in our department, but as far as caregiving youth or other types of certification, I know the Palm Beach Medical Society does the care coordination certification, but I think that might be an area that we can explore further.
Yeah, this isn't really for them to be trained, but it's to use the experience that they have had in their roles so that they can get certification and be in the workforce.
I see. Okay. Tammy, did you have some additional comments?
It wasn't specific for the caregiving youth, but one of the things that we have identified is the shortage of mental health workers in Palm Beach County as well. And so one of the efforts that's going on with Be Well Palm Beach County Youth Services and the school district is we have been working on a curriculum that was just submitted to the Department of Education, hoping to get certification at the high school level for, you know, a mental health technician, and also be able to encourage those students to move forward. There were certain certifications that were available in the medical area, and we're trying to expand that in the mental health area so we can create that pipeline, because the pipeline is drained right now.
But I love the idea. I mean, I know that we use lived experiences in the homeless world, in the behavioral health world, in the senior world. So I think that there's certainly an opportunity to utilize those lived experiences as caregivers. It's my understanding that when a person is like transitioned to hospice, that they have support groups and others that are available to assist those individuals who are going through some trials as a caregiver. But let's look to explore that further to see how we can capitalize on that tremendous asset. Okay. Any other questions before we move on to our next Beyond the Element? All right. So if you want to advance to the next slide. All right. So This next phase, and I'm just going to stay kind of high level with some of the information I'm sharing here, but this next phase, as we run it parallel to the element going through its the final draft, because we want to make sure that we gather input from you, make whatever tweaks we need, bring it back to the Citizens Advisory Committee, and then once they approve the final draft, then to take it through the steps that I'm going to actually have Stesi provide to you at the end of this presentation. But while it's going through that process, we'll begin to take a look at how we want to measure the effectiveness of each of the systems or domains. And so these are just some examples of things that we may want to consider as we look to determine how well the domains are performing. And we would want the backbone organizations to be involved in not just creating these indicators, but also the criteria that is aligned with the indicators to determine how well we're doing. So if we're talking about an equitable focus on vulnerable populations, that is focused on the intersectionality piece. How well are we keeping individuals with all of the intersections in mind as we are providing services, not just in terms of the way that we communicate, but where the services are located and how accessible they are. The resource availability and strategic allocation, how are we looking at all of the resources that are available out there and determining who's investing in what and using that along with one comprehensive assessment to strategically allocate resources. How are we working as a team? So just when you think about these potential indicators, think about the backbone organizations utilizing this to facilitate a discussion with providers and system partners, because you'll see how it will come into play on the next slide. Location and service integration. How well are we doing at really integrating our services? CareerSource talks, and they're looking to integrate a one-stop shop, right, where people can come in, apply for multiple services in one location. So how well are we doing that? How well are we looking across the county and determining where we have too many resources and where we don't have enough? Where we're providing too many services to one population or vulnerable population, but not enough to another. How well are we doing that? What is the customer experience? That's really important for us. How are we gathering feedback from our customers about how well our systems are performing, and how are we integrating that feedback into our planning process and ensuring that our customers have a high level of satisfaction with the experience of going through our systems and getting the supports they need. How are we looking at data and outcomes to drive our decisions? That's really key. And it's really key in looking at evidence-based strategies in order to further our work. How well are we doing, not just with intervening, but working more upstream and preventing hunger or preventing individuals from being homeless, or preventing individuals from getting to a point where they have diabetes or have mental health issues or depression or things of that nature. So looking along that continuum. And then how well are we doing in utilizing research and evidence-based programs and services to provide supports to the families in need. So these are just some examples that the Citizens Advisory Committee and system partners will be potentially looking at in order to develop specific criteria so that we can measure how well we're doing in each of these areas. Next slide. And so when we do that, there's an opportunity for us to come up with some type of rating scale, right? Maybe it's 0 to 5. 0 being we're not doing it at all. 1, maybe we're doing a little bit of it. 2 being, we're okay. And where 5 is we're doing a really great job. And so an example of what this might look like in each domain, right? So if this is housing and homelessness, that's just an example, we would then perhaps have the providers and clients give feedback on how well we're focusing on vulnerable populations, and make sure that we are being objective as possible and explicitly pointing out which populations may not be getting the services they need in an equitable way, or where we're not strategically allocating resources, or where there are gaps in the locations for services, or gaps in our ability to integrate services. So these are just examples of what the scores might look like. Ultimately, we would want to reach a 5 in each of these categories, and so that little green line would go across all categories, and it would be like an octagon or whatever shape that would be. But in areas where we're deficient, we'll clearly be able to see that. So, for example, you can clearly see that with evidence-based programs and services, based on this example, we're deficient. And so when we look to report our progress to the CAC or those other accountability groups, hopefully we can come in and talk and utilize a tool like this to show where we're doing well and where we're not doing well. And if homeless and housing is the category for FAA that is up for the competitive process, then we would consider this and we would say, when we are issuing our NOFO, these are the evidence-based programs and models that we want agencies to submit their proposal to specifically respond to, or we might say, make sure that you're sharing an evidence-based program or model that you'll use to provide services in this particular location for this particular population, because ultimately we want to improve in that area that is deficient. And so there'll be ongoing communications with the Citizens Advisory Committee and other accountability structures to assess how we're doing in these areas. And hopefully we can utilize this information similar to the way that we utilize the indicator report to strategically invest our resources and our efforts to improve our overall systems of care. Okay? All right. So any questions about that before we move on to our next steps? Scott.
It brought up an interesting thought. Why couldn't that also be used to assess an individual funded agency's performance against that?
I suppose it can be.
I mean, if you look at the funded agencies and their performance against it, that would raise
the overall score, yeah.
Everything.
The aggregate score, yep. Absolutely.
On the same elements, yeah.
So I would imagine that there'll be some interesting discussions about those indicators, and certainly I listed those as examples because as we go through this process, it may be that we miss something, or maybe that we decide to combine something, right? And so, but yeah, Scott, I think there's certainly an opportunity for agencies to align their own organizational assessment to some of those areas to determine how they want to provide services, where they want to provide services, and it can provide guidance to them as well. Any other questions, thoughts, or comments? All right, so next steps. So I'm going to actually have Stessie, who's usually behind the scene, but she's a phenomenal planner. She's definitely an up-and-comer in the Community Services Department, and we're also proud of her and the work she continues to do. I'm going to let her talk about our next steps as we have been working with our Planning Commission to outline our process, and so this will give you an example of what will happen in months to come as we continue to finalize the draft for the element and then move into the phase 2 of how we're going to measure the domain performance. Stacey?
Thank you, James. And also, because I know we were all Googling it after we were looking at his graph, it is called a heptagon. Also known as a septagon, depending on what you want to call it. Okay, so for next steps, basically once we take into consideration all of the comments and the questions that we got today regarding our element, we're going to go ahead and send it over to PZMB, which is actually in this building. They're going to be presenting it at the Planning Commission. The goal is for January 14th. We're not quite sure if we'll make it, but that is the hopes. After that, they will be presenting it to the BCC on February 2nd. If all goes well, then it goes back to the Planning Commission. There's multiple dates that we have on the board right now. Once everything gets approved there, it will go back to the BCC. I think there's some steps, actually. Give me 1 second. I'm going to grab my notes, because at some point, it goes...
And this is what happens when you work for me. You always get caught up at the last minute, right? So I have to keep them on their toes. You know how that goes. But I know Stacey is, she and Megan and Taruna and I were, we've had some calls with planning and zoning, and they actually have a person that's delegated specifically to our department to assist with this process and making sure that the revisions are outlined and framed in a certain way, because the state requires that it's outlined in a certain way. So I'll let her continue.
Okay, thank you. Okay, cool. There was just another thing missing after the transmittal hearing. So once it goes back to the Planning Commission and then it goes back to the BCC, they approve it. This is actually when it goes to the state. And there is a team of planners at the state that also take a look at it. They will make any comments, anything that they need, and send it back to PZMB to let us know, make any changes that we need to make. And then the hope is that everything will go as planned, and then it will be sent back to the BCC for an adoption hearing. Right now, it looks like our goal is November 30th. So we've only got about 4 more years of work on this, guys, and then we'll be done. But yeah, then that's it.
Thank you.
All right, James, thank you.
Thank you very much, Stacey. So as you guys see, this bureaucracy does take a long time. But once we get this officially approved, it becomes law. And it's just a great document to have to guide our system of care. Palm Beach County should be proud. The Health and Human Services element is an optional element, and we're the only county out of 67 counties that has a Health and Human Services element. And so that is really special, and I think we set the example for other counties throughout the state and throughout the country who want to document this work and to do it well. So any other questions or thoughts or comments on the process?
James, I was going to say that if you didn't. In my past life as a CEO of a not-for-profit working with adults with developmental disabilities and being part of a state organization, it stood out how much Palm Beach County assists the provider agencies in comparison to my former colleagues around the state. And for that, I think both the other provider agencies in Palm Beach County, and the folks we serve are very grateful.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, so does staff have any additional comments that they'd like to make before we dismiss? Citizens Advisory Commission Committee, do you guys have any additional comments?
Yes, I just wanted to say this is a great stride, listening to all the elements that we presented today. I know the room is not full, but we also have persons who are listening virtually, and I wanted to say thank you to all of us, Community Health and Human Services, and to CAC for this wonderful work. I think even though it looks like 2022 is far ahead of us, before you know it, 2022 will be here. And as we wait for the full adoption of all of this, This is what we have been working on for the past 4 years. I wasn't here 2 years before, but gotten involved. It has been, a tremendous work, collaboration, coordination, and every single one of you need to applaud yourself, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Heather, do you have any additional comments that you'd like to add before we close out?
No, just thank you so much and keeping us on track today, and for all the presenters and all of you online. I think we had over 35 people online join us today. We know that this time of year is busy, so, and here we go, 2022. So join us at our CAC meetings on a monthly basis. You can join us online or in person, and thank you.
Absolutely. And do we have any of our presenters that would like to add anything, or individuals online or in the audience before we dismiss for today?
How about Happy New Year?
Absolutely. Anyone else? All right. Well, I just want to say again, thank you very much for engaging in this very long and lengthy process with us. We really appreciate and don't take for granted all of your efforts. And we encourage all of you to read through the documents, to provide us with comments. You can send comments directly to Stacey or Megan regarding the element. And we will certainly keep you informed as we progress in getting this element adopted. So thank you very much.
Thank you.